Welcome to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to be continuing with the garage makeover that I've been doing the last few weeks. So if you haven't seen any of those videos, we've redone the floors in my 2-car garage. We added quite a bit of light. We built this workbench. We got rid of a lot of the old stuff that we had in here and really made this workspace a lot more functional for being such a small space. But today we're going to be tackling the welding area because it's very lacking, and I definitely need a lot more of a functional space in here with the amount of welding projects that I end up having. Currently the setup is just an old welding table that I made a long time ago, and it was one of my very first welding projects that I ever did. And to be honest, it is very poor. The welds are terrible. It's not very functional. It's kind of a bad design initially, but it worked fine for everything that I was doing, but I really wanted to treat myself to something a little bit nicer. So I ended up going with a kit from CertiFlat. This is just a 24 by 30 inch table, but it should be amazing to actually start making stuff on with the fixturing options and just the amount of sturdiness that this table is going to have as opposed to the old one. You can also see I have a toolbox down there that's going to be incorporated into the table as well, as a more efficient way of storing all like the random TIG consumables and MIG consumables that I go through. I've had a really inefficient way of storing them in the past, just in like plastic bins and stuff, and I ended up losing quite a bit, and it's super frustrating when you're trying to weld something and you can't find anything. And that's the whole reason why we're completely redoing my garage right now. It is going to be a little bit weird to incorporate that into the table, but I think I have a decent idea. The only reason it's going to be weird is because it's for the top of a tool chest, so it does have that hinging motion for the top. But I think we're just going to get rid of that, and you guys will see the rest once we actually get to it. But I'm going to start getting to work. We're going to pull out that welding table. This should be the last project that we do on that welding table, and I'm super happy about that. So everything is snapped into place, and you saw initially that I checked the flatness of the actual tabletop with a straight edge initially, because you want, if there's a crown, you want the crown to be going underneath. That way, once you weld it all in and you clamp it all together, it has a better chance of being perfectly flat when you're done. You can definitely tell that this thing has quite the crown to it. It is not straight at all. I was kind of surprised. I figured that it would definitely be a little bit flatter. But it is only 1/4 inch, so if it was a little bit thicker, it probably would be fine. But the good thing is all this stuff is perfectly straight, so as long as you clamp it all together and do it the way that they show you how to do it, I'm just going to use U-bolts and just get a lot of force on there and pull everything in nice and straight, and make sure that I'm not pulling anything like out of place by going too tight or anything like that. And we should be good to go once we weld it all in, and as long as you just tack it all together, make sure it's all straight, and then do the full weld, then you really shouldn't have to worry about pulling anything out of place or any warping or anything like that. Now that we got all the support pieces in there, everything's tight. Make sure you don't over tighten it, as you probably saw me loosen up a couple of them, and that was because it was putting a little bit too much tension on it and kind of pulling the ends a little bit out of square. So definitely make sure that you don't over tighten it, just enough to get the crown out, which right now it is perfectly flat, so the crown is completely out of there. So we are going to weld all these support pieces together, and like I said, we're just going to start with tacks, substantial tacks anyway. And we are going to come back once it has all of its structural integrity, and we're going to fully weld this thing all together. But you don't want to warp it or anything like that, and you definitely will, because it's only 1/4 inch thick, if you just start laying on really thick beads right away. All right, so those were the last 4 pieces that actually needed to go on to complete the actual tabletop. And according to them, if you get them in there and they actually fit, then the table is extremely square and you didn't mess up any of the steps, so that's good. They all fit, so I actually put down some solid welds on all of those just so I didn't have to go back and re-weld them. So now we have to weld up the entire table. I'm just going to jump around so I don't warp anything. And yeah, it'll be a long process to get all the beads in there, but we want to make sure that the table is strong and it's not going to warp or anything like that, because it needs to be tied in everywhere, because it is only a 1/4 inch, so that it doesn't warp if you're ever doing any like heavy welding later on. So we're going to flip it over and get started. But now we're actually ready to start assembling the legs and the frame that's going to hold up the toolbox. So as you guys know, I have a very small garage, so that's why I have to incorporate the toolbox into this table. I would like just the table and to kind of just be open, but I'm gonna make best use of the space as I possibly can. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna be doing with it. Probably some shelves on it, some TIG holders for like my TIG rods, as well as maybe some stuff that's going to hold some clamps. I don't know. We're going to kind of figure it out as I go, because I didn't come up with schematics or anything like that. So we'll see how it comes out. All right, this table is fully assembled and welded together. We don't have to do anything more as far as assembly, so... All right, the table is fully assembled and welded together. We threw 1 coat of paint on the frame, and I managed to wedge that toolbox in there. I made it a little bit off square because I didn't do the best job measuring and everything like that when I was doing it, but it fit. It's super snug. It's not going to come out of there very easily at all. So that's good. I'm glad it actually fit. Kind of looks decent in there. I would have liked probably a smaller toolbox and then a little bit higher, so that'd be easier to get at, but not a big deal. I am probably going to be adding some more attachments to this thing for like hanging clamps, things like that in the future, but I'm going to save that for later. I am going to do some more, but I'm going to call it quits for tonight and we'll pick this up in the morning. All right, the welding table is done. I am not really gonna do any more in this video to it. I may eventually add on some more stuff for clamps. Probably saw me struggling with that bar that I put over there for the clamps, and that was because I welded it on the wrong side. I meant to put that bar on that side so that I could hang the clamps because I knew it'd be too close to the toolbox. But somehow when I had it upside down, I don't know, I didn't pay attention, but I ended up welding it on that side. So I'm going to eventually put one over there as well as add some more stuff. Probably some shelving of some sort so that I can make more use out of this space over here, kind of fill up all the open gaps and stuff that it has on it. I may even make use of the back side of it too, because it has such a big gap between the toolbox and the actual end of the table. That way I can try to maximize it, and it does roll so easily with those wheels, so it wouldn't be a bad thing if I needed to put something back there and eventually get it out type of thing. I could just pull it a little bit away from the wall and get at it. I am going to be making some clamps that are going to actually work in the fixture table. If you have seen online, they definitely sell them. It's about $50 to $60 for one decent clamp. I don't really want to spend that, so I'm going to do a Harbor Freight hack and just make some clamps myself. That's actually what I was using really to make a lot of it. The stuff that I threw in the bottom drawer, I'm going to be turning those all into different fixture clamps later on. If you guys are interested in seeing how I'm going to make those tooling clamps a little bit later, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. I'm going to be completely overhauling this section of my garage where you just see some drywall. It's going to eventually be a really nice section for all my fabrication tools, tubing bender, dimple dies, things like that. Neatly organized, so if you're into that kind of thing, make sure you subscribe. If you got any tips on it, let me know. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with the space because it is pretty limited. It's only about 5.5 feet by 2 feet because I got to keep it as small as possible so I can actually get a car in here and work. And a lot of that's taken up by the table and the welders. So it's pretty much just going to be everything hanging on the walls, different shelves, probably some pegboard, something like that. I don't know. If you got any suggestions, drop it down in the comments below. And I will stop rambling. I'll see you guys with the next video.